This is for class 8 science, biodiversity and wildlife conservation. Okay, so what is biodiversity? Today we are going to study about biodiversity. Bio means living form and diversity means variety. When is the International Biodiversity Day celebrated? On 22nd May. Who coined the term biodiversity? E.O. Wilson in 1985. Now, biodiversity comprises of two things, that is flora and fauna. Flora is a native plant and fauna is a native animal. Flora examples of native plant are chir, oak, pine, bamboo, deodar, jamun, mango, guava, etc. Fauna, that is native animal, examples are tiger, leopard, antelope, sambar, chinkara, nilgai, hyena and porcupine. So these are the biodiversities. Now coming up to next is threatened species. Before that, we'll study about IUCN. What is this? International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. Next is WCU, World Conservation Union. So these are the two unions, that is International Union of Conservation and Nature and Natural Resources and the World Conservation Union, that is WCU, are the two main organization that are conducting for the biodiversity conservation. Now coming to the number one is endangered species, which is soon to extinct, and if the threat continues. So this is not extinct, but it will soon become extinct. Examples are Asiatic loin, loin-tailed macaw, and crocodile, blue whale, Indian rhinoceros. Okay. Next is vulnerable species. Vulnerable species are less than endangered, but if the threatening is continued, then it will become endangered species. Example you have to learn is vulnerable species, black buck, golden langur and chinkara. So these are the Indian ones. Okay. Now is it clear? Endangered species and vulnerable species. Now next we have to study is rare species. What are the rare species? Rare are the species localized to a certain geographical conditions, that is least vulnerable. Example are wild buffalo, Asiatic wild ass and the golden cat. Okay, so these are near to vulnerable but not still. Next is the extinct species, which has lost species or known as fossil species. So the fossil bird is known as Archaeopteryx, fossil reptile is Dinoceras, extinct bird or fossil bird is dodo. Dodo is from Mauritius and due to loss of habitat it is now no more. Plants like Nilgiri holly and cry pansy from India has been extincted. So these are the lost species or the fossil species. Next is threatened species. The threatened species, the species are nearly extinction or reduced in number. So these are near to extinction and reduced in number. So these are known as threatened. Next is Red Data Book. Red Data Book is a document that contains a record of extinct, rare and vulnerable species or near to extinction. The Red Data Book is maintained by WCU, that is World Conservation Union. Okay, WCU is maintaining this Red Data Book. Red Data Book has color code information sheet, that is a black color which is confirmed to extinct. Red color is endangered species. Next is green color, that is formerly endangered and number have started to recover. White is a rare species. Amber is a vulnerable species. Gray is not classified. So these are the color coded information sheet. Now what does Red Data Book consist of? It consists of the information about the distribution, the status and of threatened species, guides their conservation program. So this is all about the Red Data Book. The next is the factors causing biodiversity. Factors causing biodiversity extinction is habitat loss due to population rise. The more the land needed due to high population, that is why we are doing? We are cutting all the trees so that we can build more roads, more dam, bridges, building, industries, etc. And this causes the biodiversity extinction. Next is the deforestation and cattle grazing. So overgrazing of cattle causes grassland depletion, and the deforestation or the cutting of the trees cause what? The extension of biodiversity, because the tree is lost, and tree is the shelter of many animals, so that is why the biodiversity is also losing. Now next is pollution is a factor, which is a major factor. Air, water, soil is getting polluted due to all the agriculture toxin elements and petroleum products, etc., landfills, waste, plastics and all. So that is causing biodiversity extinction. Climatic change, due to a high temperature, rainfall pattern increase, global warming, what is happening? Melting of glacier is occurring, rise of sea level is occurring, the temperature is rising, and this, due to this, the biodiversity is being near verge of extinction. Now human disturbance is causing, like, for we are hunting and poaching the animals for our use we use animals for skin, meat, body parts, cause animal extinction. So human disturbance is causing biodiversity extinction. Now next is what? Deforestation. What is deforestation? Deforestation is cutting of the tree or the clearing of the land. Why we clear the land? For human use, of course, for building hospitals, house, road, company, industries, and etc. And also deforestation due to our furniture need, timber need, and all that. So deforestation is cutting of the tree. Now what are the consequences? The change in due to deforestation, there are many things, that is ecological disturbances happening, and due to that, the change in climate, number one. Number two, the global warming. Number three, desertification, that is desert is forming due to loss of forest. Soil erosion, of course, if the forest is lost, then the soil is becoming eroded fast, and floods. Drought, loss of wildlife. Drought is what? That is no more water is available there. And loss of wildlife, the wildlife is also being losing, because the forests are the shelter of many animals, and due to deforestation or cutting of the trees or forest, the wildlife is losing. And the next is the depletion of the resource. Now what are the causes of deforestation? What is the cause of deforestation? Is mining, which we are doing, building, industry, factory, road, dam, bridges, forest fire, disease, plants, and human damage. So these are the main factors that is causing deforestation. Now next is the forest conservation and ecological balance. So how to balance it? First is we have to prevent the cutting of the trees, and we have to start afforestation, that is restore the forest, replant the tree to improve the ecological balance. And what we have to do? We have to protect our forest with fire and with all, and pesticide spray, or the plant which have been got diseased, we have to make it disease resistant plant. And we also have to prevent overgrazing of the grasslands. We have to use an alternate source for tree or wood burning, that is a biogas, which is a good alternative, ecological, eco-friendly fuel. And we have to increase the forest conservation awareness. So these are the factors which will conserve the forest and do ecological balance. Now conservation of biodiversity. Conservation of biodiversity is preserving the soil fertility, agriculture, horticulture, apiculture, sericulture, regulate the climate, rainfall, wind speed. Ecosystem balance is through the food web and food chain. The wild animals, plant provide biodiversity. There are 25 hotspots all over the world and 2 hotspots in India. These are the Eastern Himalaya and the Western Ghats. The mega biodiversity are India, Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Australia, China, and Philippines. So these are the conservation of biodiversity and the 25 hotspots and mega biodiversity. Okay. So wildlife conservation. The wildlife conservation is the protected area. The wildlife sanctuaries is 551 in India till 2019. Hunting is restricted in the protected areas. The protected areas are for wildlife. Timber collection is allowed. Now is the national park. National park is the first one is in Uttarakhand, Jim Corbett National Park. which was built in 1936. So 1936, this is the first national park of India. There are total 104 national park in India till 2019. The national park is a preserved natural condition and a natural habitat for the wildlife preservation. Okay, conservation. Now is hunting regulation. In hunting regulation, there are strict laws. The hunting is banned and the destruction of wild animals is prevented. Next is captive breeding project. Captivity has saved species from extinction. Example, musk deer of Garhwal's Hill. Okay, next is Ghadial Nandan Kanan Zoological Park in Odisha. Lion of Gir Forest, Gujarat. Okay, these are the captive breeding. Okay, next is wildlife breeding. The wildlife breeding has two projects. One is the Gir Lion project. In 1972, the Asiatic lion of Government of India is being held in this project from 1972. Asiatic lion, Gir Lion project. Next is Project Tiger in 1973. Save Tiger was a theme, and 50 tiger reserves in India is right now. Now, what is Biosphere Reserve? Biosphere Reserve is an area, reserved area specified for the wildlife conservation. There are three zones: the core, the buffer, and the manipulation zone. The core zone, where no human activity is allowed. The buffer zone is a limited human activities allowed, and the manipulation zone, where the several human activities permitted. Next is what? The Biosphere Reserve in world is 686, and there are 18 Biosphere Reserve in India. Example of Biosphere Reserve is Panchmari Biosphere in MP, Satpura National Park, and Bori Wildlife Sanctuary. Now next is, what is the India's first Biosphere Reserve? Was the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, which is in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka. Indian Biosphere Reserve including Sundarbans, Panchmari, Gulf of Mannar, Kaziranga, and Nanda Devi. Zoo and National Park, what is the difference between the two? National Park is a place where the animals live in a natural habitat, and zoo is a place where artificial environment is created to
if you like this,
animals
please
are kept
subscribe,
in cages.
share, and
so
like
this is
my
an
channel.
artificial environment in which animals live and is known as zoo, and the natural habitat in which animals live is known as national park. Now next is Forest Conservation Act and the Wildlife Conservation Act. So the Forest Conservation Act is control the grazing, cattle grazing, control the movement in the forest produce, and you have to create and manage the reserve forest, protected forest, and village forest. Next is a forest is a natural heritage, natural treasure, and the nature's lungs. So what are the three things forest is called? The nature heritage, the natural treasure, and the nature's lungs. Now Wildlife Conservation Act, which is why it is made to control the captive breeding, set and manage the national park, sanctuaries, and biosphere reserve. The restricted hunting of threatened species is restricted. The protection of natural habitats, animals, and specific plants. So this is all about the biodiversity and wildlife conservation.
If you like my channel, please subscribe, share, and like.